guess who went thrifting? Hi everybody, welcome back to Project Happy Home. For those of you who are new here, welcome. I'm Tanya, doctor, lawyer turned homeschooling mom. If you're interested in videos about secular homeschooling, beginner, very practical minimalism, and mommyhood in general, please hit the subscribe button down below. So, I went to the thrift store, and even though I am a beginner minimalist, my brand of minimalism is more like essentialism. I'm trying to pare down our belongings to things that are essential to our life, and books are essential to me. So when I go to the thrift store nowadays, I try very hard not to buy tchotchkes, in particular baskets. I used to have a huge affinity for baskets, like I never met one that I didn't need. But nowadays I'm trying to restrain what I purchase to books or like really fun interactive games, not so much the random throwaway things you find at the thrift store. So to get to the books, I'm just going to show you them in no particular order, and I'll tell you a little bit about why I got them. So one of the first things I picked up were these 3 readers, and I generally don't pick up these stepwise readers, mostly because I don't find the stories that good. But right now, my son is going through a phase where all he wants to read are Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts and other graphic novels, which is fine. But I sort of want to get him back into reading on his own for fun, when he goes to sleep at night, just stories. And so he likes X-Men, he likes crime and detection, and he likes Transformers a lot. These are all level 4 readers, so they're for proficient readers. If you want to see an idea, it's basically like pretty good reading skill. I mean, once you're a solid reader. So this one has a story of the Transformers. This one has how it all began of the X-Men. And I actually want to read this too because I love the X-Men. And this one is Batman's Guide to Crime and Detection. And I thought this one was pretty cool because it's almost like a nonfiction. It's about things like fingerprints, etc. So if you have a little detective, this is a great little find. Oh, and I also picked up this one, the story of how Spider-Man began. Another little book I picked up was this one. It is Civilization's Fact Finder by Dempsey Parr, and it's a cute little book. It goes through different civilizations in chronological order. It has really nice illustrations, and I was just flipping through it, and if you read through it, you really do get a good spread of history throughout the ages to the present. So I'm excited to read this. I'm actually creating a secular memory work curriculum right now, so this will be useful for any kind of details that I want to add in. I got 2 little Lift the Flap books because my kids really love these. This one is Daddies Are for Catching Fireflies, and this one is for Mommies Are for Counting Stars, and I thought they were really cute. These are by Puffin, and see, they just have little flaps that open like this, so nothing too fancy, but my kids love books with just simple flaps that open and close. This is Marie Grace and the Orphans. It's an American Girls book. It's not one of the key characters, and so this was new to me, but I do love these stories. These are sort of the first chapter books that my daughter, who's 5, really enjoys, and she sits for, even though they don't have too many pictures. So I really do recommend them. They're well written. I remember loving the original like Samantha and Kirsten and Molly series when I was a kid, so they are very well written. This book, Insectlopedia, was really cute, and I was excited to find it because if you look at it, each page has a beautiful like abstract illustration of the insect, and then there's a poem about the insect. So here you have the black widow spider, here you have a moth, the whirligig beetles. I just thought it was a really nice addition to our poetry tea time. So you have mosquitoes here. 8 Keys to a Better Me is a character development for young people book, and I like keeping books like this in our morning time basket because we have an entire shelf of books dedicated to things like whining, lying, those Joy Berry books, etc. Just character development, like why should we care about kindness? Why do we want to be nice to our siblings? What do we do about tantrums, etc. And I just like to incorporate it as part of our daily curricula. So this one was really cute. So like different keys are like respect, and they'll give you a few examples of that. Patriotism, kindness, what else do they have? Courage, and it'll just give you a few examples, like 2 or 3 pages of examples of situations that match that key. Here's responsibility, feelings, self-worth. So I really liked the messages that it showed. I picked up 4 Berenstain Bears books. Berenstain Bears are super popular in this house. You know, I'm not a huge fan of reading these books out loud, partly because I feel like they go on and on and on, but my kids really love them, so I'm going to get them because they do have good messages for the most part. This one's learning about strangers. This one's The Homework Hassle, Trouble at School, and The Truth. This is one of my favorite books ever, Love You Forever. And I have a paperback copy, but this was a hardback copy, so I'm going to switch them out. I cry like a baby when I read this book to my kids because I feel so much emotion about how I love my kids, and I think this book so perfectly reflects it. And so I always cry, like, I mean, embarrassing, ugly cry, like every time, 100% of the times. And my kids love when I read this book to them because they love to see me cry, and then they ask, why are you crying every time? And I say, because I love you so much. And I think they just like the whole ritual of it. I think they like feeling that, you know, I love them so much that I cry like this with happy tears, and it's just a whole thing in our house. So I was happy to find a hardback. This was a super cute book. This is John, Paul, George, and Ben, and it's basically about American historical figures in a very cute way. So like, see, John was a bold lad, and it talks about, you know, John Hancock and his signature. And then you have Paul Revere. Paul Revere was a noisy lad. So the stories just make it really easy for them to remember. George was an honest lad. And it talks about the whole cherry tree. And you have like Tom was an independent lad. And you have the rest is history. So you have all the historical figures explained at the end. So you have a little bit more about them. But it's really cute to imagine them as little children. So this is a beautiful illustrated version of The Little Mermaid. I have a real issue with my children thinking that fairy tales are only as Disney presents them. I mean, they've watched the Disney versions of all of these, but I really like the idea of having an illustrated version of the real story. If you don't know the actual story of The Little Mermaid, by the way, it's one of the most tragic stories I can think of, and really beautiful in its story arc. Though I do have serious issues with her choices throughout, but I did want them to see the actual story. This is the sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm trying to collect all of Doll's books. Occasionally you do see the collected works at Costco, by the way, if you don't want to hunt through thrift stores, but I like thrift stores. So I think this actually completes my doll collection, and I'm really excited to have it. Another graphic novel for my son. This is Avatar. He really liked Avatar a few years ago, so I think it might be like a good refresher for him to be able to read the graphic novel version of one of their chapters. Wherever you go, there you are. This is a book about meditation and just mindfulness, and it's a classic. I have never read it, and I thought that I would. So that's why I picked it up. I like to keep books like this at my bedside table or by where I get the kids' morning cereals ready, because that way, instead of looking at my phone or something like that, I just read a page or two of something inspirational and kind of starts my day out right. This is Stella Bain. It's a book by Anita Shreve. I really like her books. I thought The Last Time We Met was one of the most beautiful books I'd ever read, and that was the first Anita Shreve book I ever read. The rest of them haven't been nearly as good in my opinion. I think her most famous book is probably The Pilot's Wife, and I didn't think that was nearly as good as The Last Time We Met, which just did all sorts of crazy things to my emotional landscape. So I'm excited to read this one though. I find all of her books pretty solid. Bel Canto, I've heard so many good things about this from lots of booktubers out there and just on podcasts, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm excited to try it. And Bel Canto won the Penn Faulkner Award, so, you know, it's Ann Patchett. It's going to be a beautiful book, so I look forward to reading it. Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister by Gregory Maguire, who wrote Wicked. Wicked was a really fascinating book, I thought. I thought it sort of lost its flow by the end. Like, I wasn't nearly as interested in the arc of the story in the, let's say, the last quarter of the book as I was in the beginning. But I was amazed by how he just reimagined everybody's motivations and where they came from and the history of these characters. So I'm excited to see what he does with Cinderella as well. And last but not least, I always check the DVD section. If you do buy DVDs at the thrift store, make sure you open the box check to see if the DVD is there to begin with, and also check the back for scratches. If I see any scratches on a thrift store DVD, I just ignore it. But I found a perfect copy of The Swiss Family Robinson. And I'm super excited to show this to my kids because this is right up their alley. This is basically their dream life. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I would go to Disney World, that was my favorite thing to see at Disney World. Some people think it's the most boring thing in the world, but I loved their whole Swiss Family Robinson treehouse thing so much. And I would make my parents stand in line for that so that I could walk through and just imagine that that was my life. And I mean, for a long time, I think my games, like for like a year or two, was just pretending that I was on a raft to a deserted island, and then I would have to make my own version of Swiss Family Robinson. So I'm super excited to share that movie with my kids. So that was my thrift haul. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm excited to put them away and to get started on them. And happy thrifting, you guys. As always, thank you so much for giving me your time. I wish you the very best day, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.